welcome to today's interview where I have the privilege of speaking with Konrad Weronski, an experienced leader with a true passion for technology and people. Konrad, last 9 years you spent on leading IT teams working on development of solutions supporting healthcare. Currently, you are head of IT Center in the Real World Solutions Department at IQVIA. Konrad, I would like to delve into your insights on the challenges faced by inexperienced candidates in finding their first job in the IT industry. What are the current trends or demands in the IT jobs for new professionals?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think what we have to be aware of that there are basically two directions you can take when you're starting your job in IT. You can have either an idea that you will be going very deep into a very particular subject. So, for example, you want to be a Java developer and you really want to invest a lot of energy in becoming a Java developer. So that's one way. And this has been always the trend, right? So you can become a better and better programmer, advance through the ranks as a Java programmer. That's one path which was always available. The other path, which I think is gaining prevalence over the years that I work within IT, is the need for generalists, for people who have maybe not so deep experience, but varied experience from multiple domains. And I've seen over the years that you can be successful in both, being a very dedicated to one domain, a specialist within one domain, or you can be exactly as successful, if not more successful, as a generalist, learning one thing, then switching to a different context, different domain, and developing yourself that way.
That's interesting, but in the AI era, when ChatGPT and some other similar tools can help people to automate the job, etc. The question is the AI era a good time for juniors and for people who would like to enter the IT industry?
I think it is. It is certainly much easier to start within IT today versus 20 or 30 years ago. When you were starting 20 or 30 years ago, you would have to have probably some background in mathematics or physics, some really strong base skills to get started. Right now, the IT market has a lot to offer for people without such background. So the programming languages, if you want to be a programmer like Python, are a bit easier to get started with than C, right? So it's easier to get started in programming, but also there are many other roles which came to prevalence over the years. Just to mention the business analysis, UX, and many other roles which were not so popular before, which don't require hardcore IT skills, but we require a bit of knowledge about IT and a lot of people skills. So I think it's a very good time to get started. There's a lot of demand, and this demand, I would say, is extremely varied. So you can pick and choose, and you probably have to think about, okay, what are your strong points to pick best?
Okay, so how many job positions don't require coding skills? What's your guess?
Probably more than do require coding skills. So there are many. I would say it's probably 60% of them within IT which don't require programming skills, but require some knowledge of IT. So, we were talking earlier about business analysis. So understanding what is really needed to be done by the IT system, talking to the users, talking to the business stakeholders, understanding the business processes. It doesn't require IT or programming skills. Another role like that is UX or usability. You have to know a lot about human behavior. You have to know a lot about usability, design principles of applications, how to make them usable. You don't have to know a lot about programming. You have to be imaginative. You have to be able to talk to people, but IT skills like hardcore programming are not required. And even if you go way in a different direction, when you think about very advanced roles like architects in many cases don't program themselves. They understand a lot of different concepts on some basic level, and they don't I know some architects, enterprise architects, who are probably not able to program in a language, but understand the strong and weak points of different IT solutions. So it is possible to be really a senior expert IT person without a lot of programming skills. You have to probably at some point in time get into something, to try it, to understand a little bit, but you don't have to be an expert in it to be successful within IT.
That's interesting. However, you know that there is a lot of people who are going to change their job. They would like to enter IT industry. So there is a lot of competitors. On the other hand, maybe not on the other hand, but what even worse, that I have some statistic that I have found before our meeting, that recruiters spend 5 to 7 seconds reading a resume. So how in that a few seconds they can make an impression on them, I mean on recruiters?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'm also guilty of that, because I look at hundreds and thousands of CVs every year, and when you have that vast number of people to look through, it is very difficult to spend much more time than several seconds on a CV. So I think that the main thing about CVs is clarity. One of the mistakes that you can make is to overload it with information, with very detailed information about whatever you have done in your life. That's not really a successful strategy. I think your CV should be clear. It should be crisp, short, to the point. And you have to really think about what is the recruiter or the manager, the hiring manager, looking for. So using a generic CV and sending it to everybody is probably not a very good strategy, right? You have to think about what are the core skills that the recruiter or the manager might be looking for, what is written in the advertisement, and then you just should think about to put this into your CV or to highlight it in a certain way in your CV if you have the relevant skills. So
okay, but how to impress you and your team that you teach to hire the best juniors and people without the experience? How, if someone would like to apply to IQVIA, how they could impress your recruiters and you?
Yeah, so I think it's not that easy, I can tell you, to impress us, because we have some great juniors already on board, and they had to go through a rigorous recruitment process. So it's not that easy to impress us. But I think it is something which is true for juniors as it is for seniors. We are looking for people with an idea for themselves, right? So if you have an idea what you would like to do, and I see in a CV some logic behind your idea. So, for example, you would like to get into a UX design and you study psychology, or you study graphical arts, or whatever, or you went on a course to build certain skill. Then you make an impression of somebody who's thinking, okay, I have an idea and I'm approaching it with some kind of logic. So that's one thing. The other thing is varied experiences, as I was referring to earlier, are quite important. So I would be probably thinking about people who had some experience either in their studies, or they are doing a nonprofit or something which is not, related to their day-to-day activity. So various experiences are extremely valuable. So I also, I've hired a philosophy graduate in my junior program because they were having a lot of these side projects or side activities which were interesting for me, and I thought that they would be relevant in our market, in our industry.
So do you want to say that it's much better to train your skills, not only like coding skills, because you want to enter because this is a typical way of thinking. Okay, I would like to go to IT sector, so I need to go to programming workshops, a 3 weeks or 3 months course, and later on to apply to some IT job positions. But you would suggest juniors or people who apply for these positions to train their other skills that could be interesting for people like you or your sector, like healthcare, and that should be the right strategy. Not go just for a programming course. Am I right?
I think after 3 weeks programming course, you would be cheating yourself if you would call yourself a programmer. So you you are becoming a programmer over years, not weeks, right? So it's a very long process. So I would tend to agree with what you said earlier. I think we shouldn't downplay the programming completely. It's good to try. It's good to build some basic awareness. But I believe that the soft skills, how we call them, the communication, the ability to listen, to ability to explain, the ability to create some kind of ownership. These are the skills which are much more important and much more possible to be built by somebody who's not within IT, right? So you can have a lot of creativity, you can have a lot of imagination, you can have good communication skills not being in IT. So these are the skills that are possible to be built on other jobs, which are extremely valuable within IT. So I would say that the soft skills, this is what you should sell yourself during the interviews, because you will probably not be able to impress anybody with your core programming skills, right? This is not why we are hiring a junior for the programming skills. For the programming skills, we probably hire intermediate or senior candidates. But with juniors, we are looking for energy, we are looking for passion, we are looking for new ideas and soft skills. So to say, we are looking for potential for growth. And I believe that it's much more difficult to build the soft skills if somebody doesn't have them. It's much easier when you join a team to pick up the hard skills from more experienced developers, because you are very quickly catching up to them. You are working with them day to day on complex problems, which is making it possible to build these hard skills. With soft skills, if you don't have them, it's much more difficult.
All right, I asked you a question about CV, but also I found that the interviewers often form their opinion within the first 90 seconds of an interview. What are some common mistakes that candidates make during this critical period then?
Yes, that's probably right. And I, as a recruiter, probably do the same. I form an opinion about somebody very quickly. I also try to be aware of it and break it. But you're probably right. The first impression is made, and I know already within this 90 seconds if I'm going to have a good interview or a bad one, right? So it very seldomly changes. I think there are several things which I would advise. So first of all, you want to show somebody that you care about this interview, right? So dressing up in appropriate to the discussion in a shirt or something is quite useful. Right now, we are also having the interviews mostly done virtually. So it's also very important to have this interview in an environment which is good for the interview. So you're not sitting at a cafe or there is nobody shouting left and right. So you have to be feeling comfortable in the way you dress, in the way where you are, because this shows that you care about this interview. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about managing your stress levels. I think it's much more important than anything to manage your stress levels at the start of the interview. This is just for the interviewer. This is probably just one in 5, 10 to 20 meetings that day, right? So they will not be stressed. You have to somehow reach their level and have a conversation. Think about it as a conversation, that you're curious about the company, you're curious about the position, and the other party is also curious about you. So think about a discussion. Maybe this will help you be less stressed. So I would say that these are the main two things. The third thing which also comes to my mind is show that you've done a little bit of research about the position, about the company. So you have to know a little bit. You don't have to know a lot of details, but you should know what is the position you applied for. You should have some questions about the position itself, because it shows that you are interested in it in a serious way.
All right, there are some hints, but what can be the biggest mistakes, or do you remember a huge mistake that someone made during the interview?
So you can turn the hints around and then you will have mistakes. So I had recently an interview where we had a video interview with a candidate, and the candidate didn't test their setup before the meeting. So we were unable to start with the interview because the candidate wasn't able to share their screen for 20 to 25 minutes. So we wasted 20 to 25 minutes of the interview in the technical troubleshooting of the setup of the computer of the interviewer. So that's a no-go, right? You should test your setup for the virtual interview. You should connect to it. You should try the video, the audio. You should try to present your screen, just, to feel that you know how this works. Also, having an interview in a public place is probably a bad idea. I had such interviews where it was very difficult to hear what the other person was saying on the other side of the screen. And when you're making yourself difficult to understand, you're probably not making the best impression.
Okay, so let's make a short summary. Someone would create a very short and catchy CV that you can read within five seconds and highlight some skills or some experience that would fit to the industry that this person would apply for. Later on, he or she needs to avoid the mistakes you mentioned a few minutes ago. And okay, someone could get this job, but do you have some, or did you have some situation where you believed someone wasn't suitable for a career in IT, but he or she has been already hired?
So they were hired. You're asking about the situation where somebody was hired and they were working in IT, but they were not good at their job.
Yes, or you notice that this person is doesn't fit to the company, or maybe just to the IT world.
Well, I think that's right now something which might happen quite often, that you have somebody applying for IT positions just because they believe it's better money or more stable employment, while they hate sitting in front of the computer. So I had several people approaching me for advice and saying, okay, I would like to get into IT. And when I probed them about, okay, their motivations and what they like doing, they didn't fit, right? So if you hate computers, if you hate technology, if you would much rather spend your time in the garden, then that's probably not a very good idea to start with an IT. You have to be at least comfortable with technology. You have to be at least interested in a little bit about one area or other within IT, and then I think you would be good. I think the motivation, the money is a very important thing in terms of motivation for the job, but it's not enough, right? If you're only motivated by money and not by curiosity or by something else, like you're working for some cause or for yourself or for learning, then I think you will be very miserable within IT. So I think it's more this than anything else, because I've seen people who are not technical but were very successful in IT, who are not good programmers but were also good in technical roles because of their soft skills. I think the only cases where I've seen people struggling a lot is where they didn't have a real idea for themselves. They were probably not very happy because they would probably spend their time differently if they were given a chance.
Yeah, that was my next question, because we read, or we can find many questions, many comments on Quora and other social networks that people would try to find job IT sector for months, for even years. They did some programming courses. They learned some hard skills or quite specific software like, I don't know, Figma, Adobe, etc. Now, what's your guess? Why those people who invest a lot of time in changing their career path into IT industry, they still cannot find a new job?
Well, I think it might be one of several reasons. First of all, as with everything, do your research first. It's probably there is, for example, a ranking of the popularity of programming languages, right? So, I would do this research first. If you're going into a very niche tool technology, you will have a much more difficult time getting in. there is probably then also less need for junior skills in such positions. So first of all, do the research. Check what is right now hyping up on the market, what's on the rise. That's the one thing. The other thing is, again, don't make an assumption that after doing a course on Coursera or Udemy, you're a programmer. Think about internship programs with companies. There are multiple companies who are right now hiring very junior people or people with no skills whatsoever, no IT skills, where they basically promise you to teach you on the job. So get interested in that. There are many companies across the world which are having these internship positions where you just basically try. And the third thing is, think about your strong and weak points. Not everybody has to be an IT professional as a programmer, right? Maybe this is not your passion. If you don't have a passion for algorithms, mathematics, and things like that, you'll probably not be a great programmer, right? Maybe you have a passion for talking to people. Then there are much more compelling roles for you. You may think about, or maybe you're very good at organizing things, right? So you can start your path as Scrum Master or a project manager, or within project management office if you're a very good organizer. So I would say that the third thing is think about your strengths and base your decisions on your strengths. And I think you'd be good.
All right, but are we suggesting people stop coding, just investing in soft skills only?
Not really. I think what I'm suggesting is to base yourself on your core skills. So I've seen very successful physicists, for example, who were developers. I've seen people also doing PhDs in biosciences who are very successful as developers. You have to understand what is required to be a developer. It's certain kind of analytical thinking. If you have analytical thinking, then you're probably very good candidate to become a developer. What I'm only suggesting is that think about your built-in or core skills and focus on those. If you're passionate about people, if you're passionate about human interactions, then maybe it is better for you to base your next job on that. But if you're more passionate about algorithms, analysis, etc., then I think you'd be very good as a developer. Mm-hmm.
Konrad, as far as I know, you're a big fan of hiring juniors. Can you imagine any scenario you would rather to hire a junior IT specialist than a mid or even a senior IT specialist?
Yeah, I can imagine several scenarios. So, for example, when I think about the workforce, I believe there is some kind of balance which every organization need to have. So you want to have some senior staff who are already contributing at their top level, but you also want to have juniors because these are the experts of the future. So in essence, I believe that there needs to be some kind of balance in terms of experience on any healthy team. So one reason for me it is the balance of different experiences. The other thing is I believe juniors bring a lot of ideas, sometimes very unconventional ideas to any team. They also bring energy, right? So they are enthusiastic. They want to try new things. They want to learn, and this energy is sometimes crucial for a well-being of a team. So as you can see, I'm not only thinking about, juniors, seniors in terms of individuals, I'm thinking about teams, right? So the health of a team requires this variation of skills. And the other thing which is really important for me is whenever we are hiring a junior, this is an investment. So I'm not expecting an immediate return of this investment. Perhaps it's even not me who will be gaining the benefits of the junior because they will want to develop themselves in a different company. And that's fine. That's fine because what I believe is that we need to give people a chance to start somewhere. Somebody gave me a chance before to get started, and I believe I need to repay the favor. So it's quite important for me to be able to invest in juniors for the sake of my own companies, but also for the sake of future generations so that they have good opportunities to start their career.
Okay, so you are not this kind of person that is afraid of the scenario that you would hire a junior, and when the junior would achieve some level of expertise, would change the job because of some financial benefits or new experiences.
So that's a very realistic scenario, right? When you're joining as a junior, then you work for a year or two with experienced guys, your value on the market rises dramatically. And for corporations and big companies like my own, and I've worked within big and with big corporations for many years, it's very difficult to keep up with the financial expectations of junior people. So it's a very realistic scenario. But I can tell you that it's worth it, even if somebody decides to quit after 1 or 2 years. Because I told you, they bring a lot of energy, they bring a lot of ideas. Sometimes these are the people who are coming with a lot of different background, which is not maybe strictly IT related. And the overall team building effect of juniors in itself is extremely valuable. But also, there are scenarios where people and juniors think long term and they want to stay with the company long term because they believe in a mission of the company or the department, and they think long term. And long term, I can tell you that the juniors that preferred to stay, they also didn't lose financially. Maybe they didn't get as much, in 1 or 2 years, but over time, sticking to one company also works. So also for these cases, for people that stay from junior through mid till senior, it is worth it to hire juniors, because maybe you are now hiring somebody who will be staying with your department for the next 10 years. And the value of somebody who is starting after studies or after changing into IT and staying with the company because they believe in certain mission is extremely valuable.
Okay. How many vacancies for juniors you have at your company, at your department?
In my department, I have currently 2 junior vacancies, but this changes over time. So it's probably year to year we are hiring 2 to 3 juniors to our department. So it's for 100 people, that's 2 to 3% in juniors. I would like this number to be even bigger. So I'm working with my management team to create an environment where we will be able to hire more juniors, because I would like to have much more balanced staff. I'm not doing this right now because I have to have the time from seniors so that they are able to coach and teach the juniors. So whenever I have the opportunity to find this time, then I'm able to open a junior position within our department. And the juniors I have right now in my department, I'm extremely happy with. They are developing very quickly, and I think it's simply a great experience for me, for them, and for our teams.
All right. Once again, thank you very much for today's interview.
Thank you very much, Lukasz. It was a pleasure.